Live. Hello, friends. This is Office Hours. If you've never been to Office Hours before, you're in for a treat because it's fun. And this is your chance to ask me questions, and I will do my best to answer those questions. Let me just grab this. And I answer them somewhere. Where is my... Yeah, here it is. I answer them in Zoom as well as on Discord. So I do not look at the chat here. Feel free to chat in there. I'm not going to look at that. I am closing this window now. I answer questions in here. That way we have like a record of them all in one place so people can search for it and whatever in the future and all that stuff. So ask your questions in Discord or join the Zoom chat and you can ask your questions directly in Zoom. And you can like even share your screen and all that stuff. So while you're thinking of your questions to ask or preparing to ask your questions, give me just 1 second because somebody sent me a time-sensitive message that I need to address. So just 1 second. Okay, sweet. So now I'm ready for your questions. So yeah, I guess I kind of didn't explain exactly how this works. So yeah, about once a week, not next week, because that's Christmas Eve. Goodness gracious. What do you think I am? A robot? No, just kidding. So normally on Fridays at this time, I answer questions. And if you are in the Zoom, then I will give priority to your questions. But then we normally have time to go through all the questions that are in Discord. And we've got a couple right now from some folks who have some questions in Discord. So I will answer those. But if you are in the Zoom right now, I am more than happy to answer your question. So I will wait a second. If you have a question, go ahead and ask.
Hey, Kent. I actually, I actually asked a question earlier in the week. That was me.
Oh, great.
The dreaded act warning.
Oh, yeah.
And like, I wasn't really able to reproduce it properly within Code Sandbox, but hopefully it kind of provides a general gist. It's just essentially I'm making and creating like a little demo app to kind of talk about rate testing library, and I'm making an API call when the component mounts to kind of populate a select input. And so when I mock out the fetch API, I noticed that when the component renders, it was throwing the act warning, but I've read like your articles on like how to fix it and all that, but I couldn't quite find the scenario where like, it's not like tied to a particular button click or anything. So I wasn't sure what your were when you make an API call and mount. So
yeah, absolutely. I'm going to download this because I never trust Code Sandbox to operate properly with tests. I've been burned too many times. So maybe this is, I will be able to reproduce the issue outside of Code Sandbox.
Okay.
Let me pull this up locally. Code Sandbox is glorious and it promises so much and it almost delivers on all of it, but yeah, it's not always super reliable. Okay. Oh, am I still installing? I guess I am. Yeah, so here we can take a look at the code while we're waiting.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. This is nice and small. This makes it way easier for me. So
put it down.
Yeah, thank you. So we have a use effect right here. We're managing some state, and immediately upon mount, we are calling this fetch, and then we eventually we will set the breeds, which will trigger a state update. So yeah, this is great. I know exactly what to do with this, and or at least I have some ideas. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on. So yeah, you have your fetch mock here with spy on. You mock the implementation. Yep. And this right here, does that solve the problem right there when you do it that way?
Yes, I've done it that way, and I also use like the wait for method, but I've only really seen that used with like elements. I wasn't sure if that was the right approach. But yeah. So if you comment out the act, you should be able to reproduce the issue, I think. Hopefully.
Yeah.
Don't look like a liar.
Yep. Okay. Yep, there it is. So but the reason why you're asking is because you're like, I'm not comfortable with this. Kent has said that you shouldn't do that. Yeah, exactly. So fun fact, you could actually do this and it will also solve the problem. You don't even need to wrap the render. And so what's going on here is you've got, as soon as this renders, this use effect is going to get called. And because we automatically wrap render in act, then that is going to flush all the side effects before continuing on. So it flushes them synchronously. So normally you render the component, React is like, I'm all done, browser does its thing, and then React's like, just kidding, and it jumps in, like, so that sort of thing happens asynchronously. But in our tests, we don't want everything to be async for various reasons, like race conditions and stuff like that too. So that's what act is for. Act says, hey, I'm going to do a thing, and when I'm all done, that's going to like trigger re-renders and stuff. I want you to synchronously run all those side effects so that I don't have to wait for those side effects to run. And so that's what's going on here is we're saying, hey, render, let's schedule all of these side effects to happen. And then because render is wrapped in act, once render is called, it's going to instantly run the side effect before we even get to this next line. Okay, so that's what's going on. So once we've run this is doing an async thing. So what it's doing is it's saying, hey, JavaScript environment, I'm going to do something asynchronous. So put me on your event loop schedule here. Now, normally when you're in a browser, a fetch request is going to take a couple seconds or milliseconds or something. But because you have mocked window fetch, that's going to happen instantly. Like it is marked as async, but it happens right away. And which is good. That's like what you want in your tests. You don't want to wait arbitrary amounts of time. So because this was scheduled and then instantly resolved, it is going to happen on the next tick of the event loop, which is why you can't just say act without the async. Right? This will not work because this will run before our fetch request results. So the reason that this ends up working is because we are scheduling some async work to happen after we've already scheduled this async work to happen. So this one finishes first, and this one finishes later. And so we schedule the fetch, then we schedule the act, then we finish the fetch, then we finish the act. And so then the important part here is that this set breeds, this state update happens when we have an act in flight. So we scheduled the act, we set the breeds, and then we finish the act. So that's what's going on. That's why this solves this problem, is because of just the timing there. If we were to put some arbitrary set timeout in here or something, that this would not be sufficient, which is part of the reason why I don't like this solution. It's also like the other part of the reason is it's not exactly correct, and it's not really communicating what we're trying to accomplish here. So all of that like backdrop said, how do we solve this problem? So the way that we solve it is thinking about the user and what does the user, what is the end user trying to see, and what is the developer user trying to do, and how do we simulate that same thing in our test? So having this fetch request, that's a very normal thing. When the app mounts, we fetch. I should mention that this is not normal if you're using Remix and you want to have like an excellent user experience and stuff. We're like fighting against this sort of thing because this basically requires that you have all of the code run and mounted before you can even start fetching the data. It'd be cooler if you could fetch the data ahead of time so you don't have loading states and stuff for your users. But not everybody can like rewrite their apps all at once to use Remix. So this is what we have today. So how do we solve this problem? What we're expecting is I render this component, it goes and gets some dog CEO stuff, and then we render some stuff to the user. So from the developer standpoint, they just want to render the component. From the user standpoint, they want to see a loading state. They want to see the dogs or the breeds on the page. And then like eventually maybe good to have like an error state as well. So like those are the three things that the end user is expecting. If I was like a manual tester, those are the three things I'd be thinking about. So sorry, it's a little bit warm. So that's what our test code should be doing, is it should be asserting on the loading state, asserting on the resolved state. So what if we did something like this? Screen, do we have screen in here? .debug. If we stuck a screen debug right there, then what we should be seeing, yeah, we may not. It may be resolving too fast. So do you have a loading state? Is loading?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because I have like a app that's built out more, but I try to like condense them, but can't remember what I took out.
So what it looks like is this is resolving so fast that you never see the loading state. And so what would probably, like, not everybody agrees with me. I should preface it with that, but I think that loading states are an important thing to assert on. And so what's happening here is this mock fetch, it is on the next tick of the event loop. So this is a little bit surprising to me, but it's resolving so fast that we never see the loading state. And so we can't assert on that loading state. And so like what we can, I have like a couple of things I want to talk about with this. So first of all, this mechanism for mocking fetch requests is not my preferred mechanism. Yeah, you're nodding, I think you know, but for those who are watching, the better way to mock fetch is to use MSW. It's brilliant, it's amazing. And with MSW, you wouldn't have to do this, but we'll stay with this because this is what we've got. We're going to add an arbitrary weight right here so that we can do a more full simulation of what a fetch request is like, where you do have some time that fetch request is going to happen. So we're going to say await new promise. Yeah, thank you, Copilot. But we don't need to do a whole second. We can probably just do like 10 milliseconds. That should be sufficient.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that
yeah, you're good.
Like I like to, I have the main app is like you just click the button and it provides like a list of dog images. Like I said, a little demo app, but I stripped all that out. So it's just, there's not actually the loading state that you saw there in the code pertains to the, like when you actually click the search button. I don't have.
Oh, okay.
So this is just verifying that like we have like a certain amount of options within the select input, which is where you see that like.
Oh yeah, I see. So the is loading state is actually initialized to false.
Yeah.
That's why we're not seeing the loading state.
That's why I said that. Yeah, like I said, I took out a bunch.
yeah, that's okay. All right, so we'll just like stick that you know, in the back of your mind. Asserting on loading states is useful most of the time.
Sure, yeah.
So I'll get rid of that. I don't think you should need it. I was surprised that it seemed that we needed it. So you shouldn't have to need it. But if you do, that's how you would do the loading state. Okay, cool. So that takes care of the loading state. The next thing is the user expects there to be options of breeds that they can select. And so they need to wait for those to show up. And so, and those are, let's see, when we have our breeds right here. Those are rendered as a map on the options. So when we look at this, we don't have those options yet. And so what we can do is we can wait for those breeds to show up. And the breeds that that are going to show up is going to be our mocked breed list response. So we know what breed options there are. And so we could say, wait for, and actually, you know what, we could also use screen find by probably role. I think there is an option. Yeah, sweet. Name, and we'll just say boxer as an option here, and await that. And this does not have the act warning.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, so this is the way that we solve it. Is we think about what is our user going to do. They need to wait for this thing to resolve. So let's wait for that thing to resolve. Now, sometimes I've had people say, well, listen, Kent, I actually don't like, I'm only asserting on the loading state, and I have another test that's going to assert on the breeds being loaded. So I have those two tests split up. And so for them, they can just say, you know, assert loading state, whatever assertion that is, like, I guess screen get by text loading or whatever they end up doing. And then they have this in another test. And so well, this is going to bust, but we'll pretend that's there. So they're getting an act warning here because of everything that's happening after that loading state happens. But they want to separate their tests into like, here's the one that tests the loading state, here's the one that doesn't. And what I say is, but the fact is that you're rendering this thing and it's doing some stuff. Your test needs to either assert on that stuff happening and wait for it to finish, or it needs to clean up. And so there are two ways to solve this problem. You can either unmount and like explicitly unmount it. And in that case, that means that you need to handle some cleanup in here. So we could say, this is a pretty quick and easy way to, it's not really cleaning up, it's just working around the problem.
Yeah.
So here we're saying, hey, if you've unmounted, then I'm not going to bother setting the breeds. That's not like what would be the right thing to do is probably cancel the request. But there are arguments to be had both ways, because some people say, well, maybe the user's going to come back here and it'd be nice to have that in the cache or something, you know, like whatever. There are trade-offs here, but that's what you need to do when you say, hey, I want to separate these tests is that's okay, but you need to make sure that you're cleaning up. Otherwise, you have like things sitting around in memory and it could be impacting other tests and everything. And so that solves that problem. But what I will preface that by saying, like, preface my answer by saying, yeah, stuff is still happening. You need to clean it up. But the more correct way to do this, or the way that I would recommend doing this, is to not split them up. Just put them all in one test. And so you can, you know, assert on your loading state and then assert on the thing that comes after that. And just, it's fine. You can just put it all in one test. And I think that's better. I actually have a blog post about this. Whoops, BLG is not a page on my blog. Let's see, longer tests. This one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, you know it.
I tried to like do a ton of research before I asked. I know you've talked about it.
Yeah. You're all over the place on that. That's great.
I didn't want to like, I know you've talked about it before, and I was like, well, I know I don't want to just assume and do that and solve it and do a quick fix. So I want to really understand, especially if I'm going to write something about it. So
yeah, totally. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to really dive into this and understand. I've noticed not everybody has that attitude toward teaching. And I think it's important to, and that's like, for me, that's why I teach, is so that I can have these opportunities to do that, right? To really dive deep and understand it better. So at least that's a big reason why I teach. Does that give you like a full picture of what's going on and how to solve this problem?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I know I saw you reference like using MSW just for like, I'm trying to like strip it down and make it super simple. And I also saw like you said at PayPal, you kind of did that little mock stuff. So I kind of reference how you did that. I forget what blog post it was in about how you used to do it before MSW.
Yeah. It's stop mocking fetch.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. This one's kind of fun. I'll actually add a reference to that for folks too.
Yeah. So I kind of used just for simplicity's sake for just a little demo app. I did that, but yeah. You know, MSW.
Yeah, I think it could probably make it just as simple even with MSW. The thing is that I've noticed, I hope you don't mind unsolicited advice on teaching.
Sure.
Okay. So what I've noticed when I'm teaching is that it's really important to pare things down and like eliminate a bunch of stuff. But people will copy the things that you're not teaching as well. And so this is why if I'm going to teach somebody how to manage state on a form, I want to make sure that form is accessible as well, even though that's like unrelated to what I'm doing. People will look at that and be like, oh, that's how you label a form. Like, no, you need an ID and all these other things. So yeah, as you're paring it down, which I think is important, it's you want to think about, okay, would I be okay if everybody did what I'm doing? And you'll notice like sometimes especially in the first like lessons of a overarching subject of what I'm doing, I do a lot of stuff that I'm like, no, you don't want to do it this way. Like, for example, when I'm teaching React testing library in Epic React, I start with just using React DOM to render stuff rather than React testing libraries render. And we're like using document query selector to get our elements and stuff. And that's because like we're building to something. And I just hope that somebody doesn't come in the middle and then leave early, you know? But anyway, that's kind of the way I think about.
That's a good point. Okay. I'll definitely consider that maybe.
I think even within the same number of lines of code, pretty much, I'm pretty sure you could manage MSW with just this, even in the one file and everything.
Okay,
so,
great.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Cool. Okay, yeah.
That's cool. So this is for a company thing or for a meetup?
Well,
or
actually, so DigitalOcean has like the Write For Us program, and they had like every month they have different topics that they throw out. And so they're like, oh, we need writers for testing. So I just pitched an outline. Like I work with React testing library all the time at my job, front-end developer. And so like really, like I really want to like, I take notes anyway to try and make sure I understand things well. So I write blog posts a lot of times on a topic to make sure it's solidified. But I want to make sure I'm not teaching the incorrect form, but and obviously doing async stuff is extremely common. So so just a little dummy thing I'm kind of a demo app I'm working on, just kind of convey some concepts of like when you use find by versus query by versus get by and all that kind of stuff. And I reference your common mistakes article all the time.
Cool.
So I like, once you screen all that. So yeah, I'm just trying to, this is kind of the last little piece. I was like, okay, I'm not sure. I've got that warning before. I just want to make sure I know how to resolve it in the proper way and not just put a Band-Aid on it. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Are you active on Twitter?
I have one. I probably have like 40 followers at most.
I want to follow you on Twitter. You're the type of person that like is very thoughtful about the content you produce.
Well, thank you. I think Code Runnings, that's my handle right now. I'm not sure if I'm going to stick with it, but right now _code_. Sorry.
Yeah. I literally saw Code Runnings on my, like Google was recommending me watching Cool Runnings just like last night.
Yeah, so, I'm Jamaican descent, so I was just kind of a play on words there, just trying to be, I don't know if it's
I love it.
funny
That's
or
awesome.
pretty, but yeah, so, okay, thank you so much. I guess just make sure I understand the solution is like probably maybe suggest using that await and then the screen that find by, and then I can assert after that.
Yeah, you could say expect
perfect.
to be in the document or whatever.
Okay, okay. That makes sense because I've used that before for like yeah, gotcha. Yeah, I'm much more happy with that. The act felt like a Band-Aid. It was bugging me, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna ask in office hours and hopefully.
Yep, that's exactly what this is for. So thank you for bringing it. This was a great question. Sometimes I fumble around a little bit, but I knew exactly what was going on here. So that's a nice.
Well, I was hesitant because I was like, oh, I know he's answers before, but I tried to come prepared. So
Yeah, you totally did. You're great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I know I've taken a lot of time. So.
Oh, you're good, Alyssa. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Anybody else in the Zoom have a question before I go over to the Discord?
Hello.
Hello, Mohammed.
Hey, it's me again.
Hello again.
What's up?
Not a lot. Just answering questions about testing and stuff.
Okay. Can I share a screen? It says you cannot start a screen while other participant.
Yeah, go ahead. I just stopped sharing.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so can you see now? Okay.
Yes.
So we build. We build and sorry, it's in Persian. It's not in
that's
English.
all right.
Sorry about that. Yeah. So we build an editor and. It is cool. I want to showcase it first. That's the editor we built. It's totally in React, and it was really hard. It's kind of like the Notion. So we can pick image and So I have two questions, and the first one is about testing, not testing the editor, more likely testing the flow of an article. This is the editor for the article, and when we are creating an article, it first become a draft with, for example, version 0.1. And then after. When we are, publishing, we cannot get like Git. We get full version, like semantic versioning. Yeah, we created Git kind of application, and it has autosave and other stuff. My question is the workflow of creating an article. First, it goes to draft and publish, unpublish, and the list is dependent testing. For example, testing integrated test with Cypress. The list is dependent on if you want to test the workflow, there should be a draft article. And currently we are doing something like before each creating calling APIs to to ensure there would be a draft article to be test the workflow of it. My question is it wrong? Is it right? Other solutions? For example, here I'm for these inputs, like for example here, these inputs can be empty from the backend. You're kind of sitting the backend. And here I'm calling the API manager. For example, I wrote an API manager which is just if there is a duplicated slug, if there was a duplicated, for example, option, it just resolve the error. It doesn't matter, as long as there is an option in the select, we're gonna select it. Doesn't matter. I'm resolving the error, which is a in general wrong thing to do, but here I'm just want to be ensured that there's an option in the should I my question is overall is should I done this stuff in before each, or I just should call the backend to seed the database for me? Or
there are so many different ways to do this, and what you have here is like the first stage of when people are starting to do this sort of thing, and so like this is a way that works, but I wouldn't say it's the best, but sometimes that's the only thing that you can do depending on how much control you have over your backend and whatnot. But if you can, what is well, my goodness, there are so many different ways to do this, and it all depends on the way that your org is structured and everything. But like if you can run your backend, well, first off, like you have an isolated backend from your front end. Is that right?
Yeah,
like they're not the same project.
Yeah, we have 3 pipelines: development, and staging, and production.
So during the test, you're hitting staging, I'm guessing?
No, we are hitting development.
Okay, yeah. So what would be the next level of what you're doing is like the problem with hitting a shared development environment is that like you could be running a test and then somebody else could run the same test at the same time, and you mess up each other. You wind up with flaky tests because you're just mixing each other's test data and stuff, which like you can kind of work around if you say, okay, let's create my test user, and like my test data is all isolated from everybody else's. But even still, I prefer my test to be able to run completely offline. It just empowers me to do more things, and it makes it reduces the amount of flake that's it speeds up the test as well. So what would be the next cooler thing is if your backend team could get the entire thing running in a Docker container that you can run locally. And so then instead of hitting the shared dev environment, you're hitting this Docker container. And then the next thing that you would want that would make things even better for you is to have either like some API that you can call, like an authenticated API or something, to completely reset and seed the database that is like within that Docker container. That would be another thing that would help a lot. So then before you even run any of your tests, you reset, seed the database, and then all of your tests can just assume that the things are there that you set up to be there in the seed. To be clear, there's nothing really wrong with having a test that sets up some data before it starts, interacts with the UI based on that data, and then cleans up that data after it's done. That is a fine way to do things. But yeah, I like, Mike, and it is so hard to give you a like what is the right way to do it, because it really that does not exist. And I guess that's why we have questions like this all the time, because we just don't have enough solid.
I have a hint for you. Dockerizing really isn't an option, because we have like 12, 13 services just to serve this single page, for example. And just Dockerizing, the CI takes about 2 hours, to just build this stuff with a terabyte of RAM. But if I want to Dockerize it and run it locally, it burns my. And another thing is we are not running tests locally, because there are a lot of tests, like 300 and plus Cypress tests, and we are just hitting the CI/CD to run the test for us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just there are significant challenges that you have, obviously. Not being able to run your tests locally is a severe slowdown for you and your team's productivity. So it I like normally, or at other companies I've been to, the backend team would create a Docker image that that we would install. So like I wouldn't actually build the backend on my machine. We would just have one that was built for us, and anytime we needed like backend updates, we just go get the updated one. And like I think they like built it every night or something like that. And so you could just download the new image and start it up. Now I realized that like maybe RAM on your machine could be a limitation there for running the app. But yeah, and so if that's a limitation, then using the dev environment, the shared dev environment, isn't like a terrible idea. But yeah, like I feel like there could be some things that the backend could give you to make it easier for you to set up like a user account and a couple other things that user has to get things seeded for you a little easier. But I mean, if it's working, then it's working. That's the thing with testing, especially end-to-end testing, is like our infrastructures are all so different and our requirements are so different. So like when we talk about the low end of the trophy, lots of shared problems, really easy to abstract. That's like we have tools like TypeScript, ESLint, and Prettier that just kind of normalize everything for everybody. The higher up the trophy you go, the less similar we are.
Yeah, the best thing that I can do is I wrote a couple of lintest stage, and type checking. For example, I'm using we are using Nix in our company, and I wrote a couple of executors, to check the typing and fix these small bugs and small stuff. And but the integrated test, like we have I don't know, like 400 pages, this type of, and running all the tests are, and the problem with build
sorry, to be clear, I don't mean that you should run all of the tests locally, like all the time. Just like when you're developing the tests, it helps a lot if you can at least run the one you're working on locally.
Yeah, but even in CI/CD, for example, the best thing that I could do is Nix has a function called affected tests. Just running the tests that for the project that are affected. But even though it's called 300, it takes about 1.5 hours to build the project. It is ridiculous.
Yeah, that's why Cypress supports running tests in parallel too. And so, well, not in just like splitting them up and having different machines run those tests. So yeah, if you're not already doing that, that's one way to speed things up.
Sure. I will search about it.
And another
Uh,
thing that I found that slows end-to-end tests down a lot is over testing, where each test is basically doing the same thing for the first like 5 seconds of the test. Most of the time, this involves like going to the login screen, registering a new account, logging in as that user. Like if that's what you're doing, this is really common. Then you can do much better by having a special test endpoint or something that you can hit and just like boom, get me everything that I need for the test. Okay, now I can continue in that.
No, for example, for example, some page like we are working on something like CMS, and this CMS has different type of modules, for example, and each these modules are page full of data, and this is a form, hundreds of this type of forms, and it is getting really hard to manage it correctly. Okay, I'm gonna search about Cypress Parler. Okay.
Yeah.
And
cool.
I have a second question, if it's possible.
Okay. Well, actually, I'm noticing there are a lot of people in the Discord who are asking questions. So if it's quick, then yes, we can. I just want to be able to get to everybody's questions.
Sure. Definitely other people's questions.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Yeah. Absolutely. Anybody else in the Zoom have a question before I go over to Discord?
Yeah, I do. Can you hear me?
Yes. And I also noticed, Mario, that you've got one. So after Steve, you can go ahead.
Did you see my question? I'm just trying to figure out how to get these check boxes to work. I've been trying to figure that out for about 2 weeks. And
okay. So you've got this task list, and it's just
I don't even know if I'm doing like these other things right, but they're working at least. But like it seems to reload when you add a task. I don't know why it's doing that.
Oh, okay. Wait, so when you add a task, it reloads the whole page?
I think so. Add one and see what happens.
Probably prevent default.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I see that. So that is happening here. You've got this task.form. Oh, that's for the delete button. Sure. This is for submitting the
I think actually I did I think I used fetcher to kind of prevent it from having to go to a different route, but I don't even know if I did that right. I think that's why I have the tasks form. It probably doesn't make sense to you. I probably didn't do stuff right here, but
no, you're good. Okay, yeah, so we're on new task. Here we are. Yeah, so here's the solution right here. You're using a regular form. So you want the remix form.
Oh.
And that'll fix it.
I'll prevent from reloading.
Yeah, so the regular form is going to do a full page reload. I didn't see who it was, but they mentioned prevent default. The all caps form does a prevent default, so it can do a fetch request rather than a full page reload. But it does it in the same way that the browser does it, just with the fetch request instead. So like that's why you noticed it was working even with a regular form. But yeah, if you don't want a full page reload, you're going to need to use the capital form from Remix.
All right, I have a question in general. Is Remix not is this not a great, like if you're doing like a single page application where you're going to have a lot of stuff, if I'm going to start having a lot of different types of parameters on this one page that I want to keep on, I don't want to go to lots of different routes. Is Remix kind of the wrong framework for that? Because it seems like the use fetcher thing that you would probably have to use all the time if you're doing application like this they say is not very common in, or the docs say it's not, you're not going to use it very commonly in Remix, but on this application it seems like I would be using it all the time.
Yeah, this is totally the use case for use fetcher. most people who are building apps are building highly routed apps. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of routes, but if you're building just like, when people say single page app, they don't mean no routes. What they mean by single page app is it's actually kind of funny, but like back before SPAs were a thing, every link that you went to within the app would do a full page reload, and you'd have a new page. That's what the page is. What they're talking about is the multiple routes, and so multiple documents that would be sent. So like every link, you do a full page reload, get a new document, and that's what they would call page. Single page apps, where I send everything from my server for that initial document, and I don't send any more documents. All the routing is happening on the client side. So yeah, Remix is super well suited for single page apps. That's exactly what it does. It just also happens to server render on any page, rather than just showing a loading spinner while it's loading all the JavaScript and data and stuff. And so yeah, like you already have routes here, and that's helping a lot. You're going to use fetcher for anything that you want to do a mutation or a data load that isn't associated to a route transition. And that's what use fetcher is for. So yeah, Remix is super well suited for, even if you literally had just one page and no routes, Remix is still really well suited for that use case as well.
And then things that I used to call components, are those routes in Remix?
So this is a route component. So the entire file here is the route. That's what this is. This is a route module. And then this is the component for that route module. And then you can have components in other files too and import those, just like we're doing here with the form. That's a component that we're importing. So yeah, so you still have the concept of components when you're using Remix.
All right. I don't know if you have time, but if you could help me figure out how to use fetcher on the checkbox, that would help. Because,
On this the checkbox there.
Yeah.
So I actually haven't tried this yet. But I have a couple ideas of what I could do. I know Ryan is working on a to-do app, and he actually has exactly this use case. And I'm trying to think. I feel like he shared some of his code, but I think it was just the action code, so not super helpful for us. So yeah, it looks like for you, you're adding an on change handler for the form. This though is a Remix form. I think that it would make more sense for clicking this checkbox to not be a navigation. And so for that case, it makes more sense to use fetcher. And you've got a use fetcher for the delete button. And I think you could probably use
the fetch. I'm actually using that just to prevent it from rerouting, and I'm actually just using the submit, the normal submit to get the actual delete value that with task ID, so I can use that to match it with the current ID and delete it. But so that's kind of, I don't think I'm doing that right.
No, this looks fine. I don't see anything wrong with this. That is going to post to your action. You're getting the delete button. And so what you've got here though is like you'll need to add some logic in here to also handle the submission of the checkbox. So here, I think you could probably reuse this use fetcher for both the check and the delete. And so we'll just do this. We'll use the task form. I'm not sure if I can run this without forking it, but I'm going to try because I don't know why, but I feel weird forking stuff that is like temporary. But anyway, so yeah, you've got your input. You'll probably also want to know which of your tasks is getting checked. And so we're going to add a hidden input for the ID. You correctly have it down here where you say, here's my button and the value is the task ID. So that is correct. That's what you want. I would probably give this a name of delete task or something like that. But yeah, delete button is fine. So long as it's all you're trying to do is disambiguate. like from checking off a task to deleting a task, and then which task it is that I want to delete. So anyway, in this case, we can't do that because we don't have a submit button. We just want to submit it when the form is changed. And so we're going to say type is hidden here. I'm going to bump this up a little bit so people can see better. The name is the, like, I guess, task to toggle or task to mark as completed. And then the value would be the task ID. And so then in your handle submit here, we don't want to do this submit because this is, we can do it this way. So basically, I'm guessing this submit was coming from use submit. And that's for navigations, which is why you have this replace true. So this will work. The problem is that if I navigate forward and then I navigate backward and then I do some sort of interaction and we call replace true, then that eliminates all of that stuff I had forward. And so now I can't go forward anymore, which is why it would probably be better to use fetcher in this case, because it does, like, yeah, that wouldn't really make sense for me as easier. Like, oh, I go forward and then I'm like, oh, actually I need to check that off. So let's go back, check it off, and then I want to go forward again, right? That would make sense to me. So for that reason, I think it makes more sense to use fetcher, because that has nothing to do with navigations. Okay, so anyway, we've got that all set up. We probably, I think we have enough. This, well, I'll talk about that here in a little bit. So I'm pretty sure we've got enough right here. So all we need to do in here is say tasks dot submit right here. And I think, yeah, event dot current target. So it's basically, yeah, the same here, except we don't need to worry about replace true because there won't be a navigation in the first place. And so with that, that's going to hit your action. And this is as far as I have time to go, but I'm pretty sure you can figure it out where you'll want to determine, okay, so there are a couple of things that my action can do. Which one are you trying to do? Are you trying to complete or toggle a checkbox, or are you trying to delete one? And you can determine that based on the form, because here we have this task to mark is complete, and here we have this delete button. So you just determine which one do you have, and then I'll operate accordingly. Does that make sense? Did I lose you? Steve, I don't know if you're talking, but I can't hear you. Oh, I got a chat. Yeah, okay, Steve, hopefully this helps you. You know what, I am gonna go ahead and save this. We'll do the full fork and everything, so I can send this to you, and I'll add it to do disambiguate which action we are performing. Okay. Then I will send that to you. Okay, good luck. Mario, go for it.
Hi. Can I start sharing my screen?
Let me stop sharing mine. Go for it.
Yeah, so I have a basic, I mean, it's just React. I implemented a kind of weird feature that was requested of me, and I just wanted to ask, is it fine, or is there another way to go about it? So I have an app. Above here we have filters, and based on them and based on the query plus the filters, we get items from backend. So it's pretty simple. And the first request was when I select anything, we update the URL, and the idea was to send it somewhere else, and they would have the same thing selected and everything would be the same. And is this, first of all, something that a single page application should do? Because let me zoom this in.
Yes, the answer to that question is yes.
So the route is ending here, and this is not a route ID, but it's just
yeah, it's a query string. Yeah, this is really common. In fact, I do it on my website. If you go to my blog post, you can toggle the different tags and stuff like that. So yeah, this is super common.
I have a problem now because when I go back with the browser button, sometimes it doesn't like recognize that something's different. So
Are you
maybe I have
using React Router in this project?
yeah.
So React Router has a use search params hook that allows you to set the search params, and that will add items to the history stack so that you can click back and forward and everything. And then your query string can be your query options can be a function of the URL rather than having to manage that in state yourself. And so then like everything should re-render properly and everything. So I would recommend looking into use search params from React Router.
Okay, but when I go back, so what's changing in what's the dependency for the use effect then?
It'll be the search params, but so use search params gives you an array with 2 elements. The first is the search params as they currently stand, and the second is a function to update the search params. And so your use effect that like triggers the like going to get more data or different data or whatever would rely on the search params. And then your like the state that you're using to manage which of these filters should be selected and everything, you just get rid of that and determine which should be selected based on the search params.
Nice. So thanks. I guess that's what I needed.
Sweet.
As of I'm saying thanks, I guess that's the answer I needed. Right now, I'm just using this query string library to get each one individual, and based if they exist, I'm setting some state. And the same thing goes if that thing is changed, if the set is changed, I am updating it manually with history replace state.
Yeah,
I didn't know about. I have one more question. That's so let me just get an example. For example, I have selected sellers, and this is basically which sellers I have selected here. So in this case, it's a static filter. But the backend wants to tell me which sellers they should be selected when they first visit some query string. For example, if I search for milk in my language, I would expect to have the big shop as kind of predefined, for example.
And so they send you that data with the response for the search?
Yeah. So my problem is because I'm storing it here, and select sellers is a trigger to get the next request because I'm sending that back to them. This would cause an infinite loop if I. So how do I go about that? Basically, if I want to set a state that with on page on list, I forgot.
Yeah, I understand the question. So what I would do is you have, remember the source of truth is going to be the URL for this. So like all of these use states will go away. And so like when the user selects different filters, that goes up in, you call set search params, that goes up in the URL. And then your component re-renders because the search params changed. And then you can reference the search params to know like how to display things, like what filters to have enabled and stuff. Now, just because like the backend also will send you information that says, hey, I want these to be selected as well. Then your UI, the part of your component that determines whether or not different items show as checked currently, will just have to reference both the search params and the backend database, but that's still derived state. That's still not something that you need to store inside of a use state. And so therefore, you don't need to worry about an infinite loop of any kind because now you don't have state for which of those is selected. You just are referencing it based on the search params and on what the backend comes to you. And so then if the user like checks or unchecks different filters, that should update the search params, and you can hit the backend. Now, one clarifying question that I have that occurs to me is, if the backend is telling you, hey, I want to have this item checked, what does the search query, or what does the query string look like when the user unchecks something? Do you have like an unchecked thing
Yeah.
that in the query string?
Yeah, so if we go juice that's in a bottle, if I deselect this, we
Okay,
track,
yeah,
we track
Yeah.
what they changed.
perfect. Yep, that's exactly all you need then. So you can derive which ones should be selected based on the query string, as well as what the backend sends to you. And then you only go and get more data when the query string changes. And you get all that from use search params.
Okay, thanks. I have
Sure.
a quick question. I'm using a library that has in itself, they're using find DOM node, and I cannot get rid of this warning because of strict mode. Is there a way around it?
Yeah, go to the library and make a pull request. I know that's probably not what you want to hear. And if they ignore you, then you can either fork the library and maintain it yourself, or just like take the library code from node modules into a directory called vendor, and now you own the code. But yeah, there's no other way to get rid of that. Yeah, it's deprecated, so you probably want to get rid of it eventually. Anyway, or get rid of that code at least that's doing that eventually. So
can't actually, there is a way, remove the strict wrapped.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but like strict mode is telling you that something is deprecated, so like it's giving you some useful information. So
yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
just kidding. I'm just
yeah.
I just didn't want it to clog up my console log. That's it.
Yeah. I mean, like you could also, I've done this before where I will hijack console error and then just not let it log anything that I don't want it to log. I've done that before. But yeah, the proper solution is to contribute back to the library and fix that problem. So
another quick question, just a second.
Okay.
So in mobile, when I want the feature like Google has it. So if I select the search bar, I want everything to zoom in, and then the back button to basically close the state, but not actually go back in history. How do you do that?
Yeah, well, so the only way you can make that work is if you push something onto history. And so you could do something like when they're in mobile, screen size or whatever, and you can do that with a media query using JavaScript. So you can determine, are they in the mobile UI right now? And if they are, when they click on the search bar and you do that animation and everything, you actually make that a navigation. And so that could either be like search/mobile, or it could be a query string thing. But yeah, you have to put an item in history so that the back button will send them back. That's the only way to do that.
Okay, thanks. That's all.
Yeah. Cool. All right, Salem, I see your hand is up.
Hey, KCR, Kenty Remix. How you doing, man?
What's up?
Man, long time no talk. I just
what's going on, man?
Just talk to you real quick, update you on what's going on, if you don't mind.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been doing an internship, rebuilding a site, rebuilding their company site using Gatsby and React. So I'm doing that. And at the end of it, I may have an opportunity to join them as a junior developer, but the role is for Angular. Yeah, the role is for Angular. They said that if I join the company, that I wouldn't have to know Angular beforehand, that it would be on the job learning type of thing. What do you think about that?
Well, is that what you want? You want to, I mean, first of all, I'm guessing you want a job.
Yes.
So, but then secondly, is this what you want for your career? Like, do you want to get into the Angular community and build Angular sites long term? Or like, are you ambivalent? Like, you don't really care either way?
I don't really care on what technology I'm using all that much.
Yeah.
What I care about is getting a job and getting that experience, because that has been the toughest thing. Even if I
Yeah.
have like freelance experience, nope, not enough. It's not good enough. You know, you gotta work at an actual company.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, like, do you love the company, hate the company, or somewhere in between?
I like the guy that I'm working with right now. I like working with him.
Cool. Then do it.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have enough context to really actually give you solid advice. But everything that I've heard, sounds like, this will work out. And like, as opposed to maybe some other industries, the tech industry is not one where you sign your life away when you join a company.
Yeah.
So like you stick around here for a year or two, and if you want to change, then like you got that year or two under your belt. Now it'll be easier to make that change. But from what I'm hearing, it sounds like this is a pretty good opportunity for you. So I'd say do it.
Nice. And I still know React. I mean, I've taken your course, Epic React. I have a year and like 6 months of experience with React and building applications, putting them into production, you know. So if I ever want to come back to React, I think that I can do it. I'm already familiar with the technology.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you could find another, or if you feel confident that you could find another company where you'd be happier with a tech stack that you're happier with or something,
Yeah.
then that's one thing. But I know that for you, it's been just a really big challenge getting anybody to let you in the door to like show you what that you can do, or show them what you can do. So I'd say take this opportunity and then see what happens in the future.
Inshallah. All right, man. I have another question for you.
Okay.
When are we getting that reset for Epic React? Like,
Oh, yeah. So the update there, here, I'll share my screen. If you go to epicremix.dev,
oh,
it will take you to this blog post where I explain that I'm now employed by Remix and make top-notch educational experiences for Remix. So I now work at Remix. I'm the director of development experience. And so, yeah, like 100% of my time is focused on Remix, and I'm not planning on updating Epic React
okay.
or testing JavaScript. This is not bad news for anybody who
Yeah.
thinks it through, because what it basically means is what you were hoping to get out of me is you want me to continue to help you build really great user experiences for the web. That's like why
Yeah.
you take Epic React and everything, because I'm going to help you do that. You're not just trying to learn React, you're just trying to build awesome experiences. So because I'm now employed by Remix to make education really awesome at Remix, that means that I'm going to be making a lot of free stuff. And so like I'm going to make Epic React quality material for free. It'll just be about Remix. But even before I joined up as a full-timer at Remix, my plan was to just only teach Remix, because I feel like the Remix is the best way to build an excellent user experience on the web, and I wouldn't want to teach you the second best way. And so Remix uses React, and so Epic React is still useful, and people who are buying it today are still getting a huge amount of value out of it. Otherwise, I would take it down. Like, I'm not going to sell you something that's not useful.
Yeah.
Testing JavaScript as well. But it's valuable stuff to know. But Remix is the thing that I feel like I can get the most or give you the most value for your time, is by teaching you Remix. So anyway, there's no plans to update Epic React or testing JavaScript. However, if you look at any of the repos, with the exception of the suspense repo and the performance repo, we have this next branch that is what I would have updated Epic React to.
Yeah.
So I've already updated almost all of the workshops from a code perspective. And I have this issue on each one of these called changelog that tells you exactly what I changed. So if you wanted to, you could go through all of this stuff with the updated stuff. You just won't get the videos for the new stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the performance workshop, somebody actually made a pull request to convert everything to TypeScript as well. So that can be helpful. The suspense workshop, things are still in flux with what React 18 is going to look like and things and their server components and stuff. So the suspense stuff still teaches really useful concepts like fetch while you render and stuff like that. But some of the APIs are probably going to be different. I don't know, like they still haven't released anything. So that one will probably, I'll probably never update the next branch on that. And I don't have time to do any more work on Epic React or testing JavaScript anyway. So anyway, that's the answer. Yeah, don't expect an update to either of those, probably ever. But like, I mean, if things with Remix don't work out for some reason, then I may come back and update this, but that we'd all be worse off if that were the case.
Yeah. And when do you decide? I mean, you've been in the industry for a while now. When do you decide to jump on a new framework? Like, at what point do you do that? Is it right away? Do you give it a couple years, or do you just,
So I am a big believer in the sunk cost fallacy. And so just because you've invested a ton of time and effort into a particular thing should not be taken into consideration when you're deciding what to do for the future. And so I know a lot of people say if React and Svelte were coming out today for the first time and nobody had used either one, this is actually something Wes Boss I saw, he said yesterday, if they both came out today, then the obvious winner would be Svelte because it is just so much easier. I don't think I agree with him necessarily, but it's an interesting exercise to think about because like if it were today, it would be a much more level playing field on like which framework to use, or the same thing for like Remix and Next, both React based frameworks, but pretty different in many ways. And so like the fact is though, that they aren't coming out today, and we already have this React knowledge. We already have like Gatsby knowledge or whatever, and more importantly, we already have projects that are using these technologies. And so if you're making an objective decision right now, is like taking React versus Svelte, for example, is Svelte so much better than React that it's worth halting all development for 5 months to rewrite our whole platform in Svelte? Probably not. So so for that sort of situation, yeah, it's probably better to not switch. But for me personally, when I decided to rewrite my website from where is it? Can't see Dodds old. So I've still got my old Gatsby website up and running. So when I decided to rewrite my Gatsby website to Remix, that was like a no-brainer because my Gatsby website had a lot of problems that were really annoying me, really bugging me. And I wanted to redesign the website anyway. And so it was basically going to be a rewrite, even if I decided to stick with Gatsby. So it was like, I saw Remix and I was like, wow, this is the future. This is an amazing piece of software, and I can do so much more with this than I ever could with Gatsby. And so in that situation, it was kind of an obvious choice for me to switch to Remix. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about. Is like, what is the right decision going forward?
Okay. That helps a lot, man. Thank you.
Cool. Sweet. Okay. So we are 10 minutes over time, but I do have a little bit of time to answer more questions. Anybody in the Zoom have anything before I see what we've got in Discord?
Hey, Kent, just one sentence. The jokes apps in Remix was perfect, but it would be great if you had, more, caching stuff, more advanced. Like the caching part is, hit or miss likely, and if you want to, continue the tutorials, please add, more caching stuff. And
yeah. Caching is definitely a good one, especially for like, I have a backend that's really slow. I need to cache that to make it fast. Yeah, and then like caching headers is also useful. We at Remix are starting to feel like caching headers are not as useful outside of static assets, because we can put our server code on the edge, which is in front of the cache. So you do it in Cloudflare workers. Your worker gets called before the CDN anyway. And so if you can just make your code super fast, then you don't need a cache, or at least a shared cache. There can be some benefit to like browser cache and stuff. So I did actually have, let me see if I can find this. I did have a section in that tutorial about caching, but I took it out. Yep, here we go. So I will share this with you. I took it out just because there was so much stuff. Like the tutorial was already super long. But yeah, you can take a look at that. I'll keep that in mind though. I'm planning on making a lot of examples of things in the future.
Yeah,
so.
but you yourself in your website use a lot of caching. I read your code.
Yeah. Like you mean my own implementation of caching?
The pages.
Yeah.
No. In your can see the new website. A lot of pages has cache control.
Yes, that's true. And yeah, so it is common, and we will have examples for that for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Other questions in Zoom? Okay, sweet. Gaurav, I think I saw you asked a question earlier, and I'm guessing this is the same one. So I'll just look at this one really quick. What would be the best criteria to say the React to JavaScript file size is too large? We should break it into a component. I'm guessing because you're asking whether to break it into another component, you're not talking about like the file size, bundle size is too big. You're just talking about the size from a maintenance standpoint. I actually do have a blog post about this. It is when to break up a component into multiple components. So give that a read, and that will hopefully help answer your question. Okay, let me see. Parsa is going to ask this question on the Call Camp podcast, hopefully, so that'll make things a little easier. Okay, I think this was in reference to something else. Yeah, we talked about that earlier. Okay, and we talked to Alyssa. Trevor, notice that when rendering inputs with default value in an outlet, the input value does not change as the URL params change. Here, let's pull this up while we're talking. Yeah, so I know what's going on here. And there's actually a relatively, we made things even simpler. Nice. Whoops. Let's go back there. Hopefully, don't scrub back and look at that. I don't think there was anything wrong in there, but that wasn't something that I don't necessarily want people to know about yet. Yeah, okay, so we've got our, oh yeah, this is familiar, sweet. So the question is, clicking between the water bottle and camera invoices demonstrates the problem. Yeah, okay, so this is an easy solution. And let me just say, answering this on the live stream now. So we're going to go to that invoice ID route, which is where we're rendering the input, right? Yep, right here. So the solution to this, and part of me wants to say that Remix should do this for you, but part of me is like, I don't know about all the implications, but it's pretty easy. We say key is data invoice.id. And that, did that fork or did that work? I don't know if it, no, okay, project fork, there we go. Thank you, browser editors. They're great, but they're not always great. Okay, here we go, clients, Cody, invoices, water bottle, camera. So what's happening now, well, let me first say what was happening before is the URL would update and Remix would be like, okay, sweet. We're just gonna render things again. It just happens to be the same component because we're on the same route. That is incorrect. This should be invoice ID route or something, but or client invoice route. But in any case, we're going to render that same component with new data, and that data is going to determine what we're rendering in here. But the default value is only taken into account on initial render. So because we're reusing all the state for this component and everything, we're just re-rendering the component itself. The default value doesn't get updated here. And so if you put a key, then that will unmount everything from the div on down and recreate these DOM nodes from scratch. And that default value will be reinitialized. And so that's why this fixes this problem. I don't think that Remix should actually build this in as like the built-in thing, because there are a lot of performance characteristics to consider here. But like part of me thinks like maybe, I don't know, might be good to have an example for this though. So if anybody wants to make an example, just like a simple example of how to make sure that React doesn't, or React will unmount and remount components on route changes, then be my guest. That would be super cool and helpful. But that is it. That's the solution. Put a key on it. And you don't have to put it on the div. You could also put it directly on the input. And you'll get the same behavior in this way too. So, okay, sweet. Hopefully that answers. Oh yes, and the answer to your question, Gaurav, is yes. All of my live streams are available on YouTube forever. Unless I accidentally share like a private key or something. I think that's happened once where I was like, oh, I think I'm going to delete this one. So, but yeah, most of the time it's always available. Okay, sweet. Mario asked, Joe responded. Sweet, and I got Trevor's question. Yep, that's awesome. We talked about this. Paolo is asking, is it possible to see an example of nested fields form in Remix without working without JS? Name, surname, plus, and different addresses, all with the same form. Similarly, yeah, I'm actually planning on building an example like this in the pretty near future. So yes, it is possible, is the answer to your question. Just not, we don't have an example like that today, but yes, this is totally possible. Okay, mocking a WebSocket connection. I don't know of any library that does this, but I know that MSW is planning on supporting this eventually, possibly. So yeah, check out MSW. Sweet. Okay, we're gonna get through all of these, so that'll be good. Sweet. Hello. Nice. Have a good workout. And yes, the Remix Planner. Go check this repo out. This is cool. I'm gonna star it. Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff. Really awesome Remix app. Really amazing experience. A lot of people have gotten the wrong impression that Remix is good for like websites and not like web apps. Like there's some sort of difference there. Remix is good for both, however you define it. I have yet to discover a use case for building for the web that isn't made better by Remix. So whatever tools you're using, I feel like you can, like Remix will make whatever you're trying to build better. Prove me wrong. Okay, sweet. That is it. Good stuff. We've got a couple people wrapping up with their last typings and stuff, so I will wait a moment. But yeah, like I said, next week is not, we're not going to do office hours because my goodness, it is Christmas Eve, so I will not be around. But I do plan on continuing doing office hours, even though I work at Remix and stuff. Yeah, I will continue to do office hours, whether or not you have any of my courses or whatever. So yeah. Yeah, I don't know.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Mohammed.
Thank you. Just want to say goodbye.
Okay. Yeah. See ya. Yeah, Tiger. I don't know if you're watching right now. I don't know if it's supported now. I just know it's planned at least, or it was. Okay, sweet. What's the difference between websites and web apps? You'll get a different answer to that question from everybody you ask. In my opinion, there is no difference. It's So like, it's kind of annoying to me that I have to say, we do both, whatever you think it is. If you want to build something for the web, you can do it with Remix, whatever you want to do. Okay, Chris had a question regarding nav on root. I want to make nav changes based on the user logged in. Yep, this is awesome. The best way to handle this is using, nope, wrong thing, Remix docs. If you go to our conventions and then route file or file name conventions here, we've got, oh, actually here, it is flat layout routes is what you want. And so you can have, like, yeah, here's a good example, app and marketing. And so you put very little stuff in the root, and then you put like the nav that you want for the logged in user in the app. And then if it's a completely different nav for all the marketing pages, then you put that in the marketing. And then all of your app stuff would go under this app directory. And so that's not going to change the URL. So you'll still have like a shared namespace between the files that are in the app and in the marketing. So we'll have /dashboard /user ID /profile, and then you'll have /index and /product. So they share the same namespace as far as like where they are in the URL, but the layout for them is different. And so that's what these dunder layout files are for. So that's how you do that. You can technically also, like if you have one thing that's like a complete one-off, it's different from everything, in wherever you're rendering that nav, you can use the use matches hook to know what is currently being rendered and render something, or what routes are currently matched, and render something completely different based on that. So like there are other ways to do this, but this would be the best way. Okay, sweet. Just wanted to know, is it possible to do integration tests with Jess if you're using Firebase? Because when I choose JSDOM, Firestore won't work. It needs, because it needs node.msw doesn't work with Firestore as well. Is Cypress the only way to do integration tests when using Firebase? I have not tried to use Firestore with JSDOM, so I can't really give you anything useful there. Sorry. Yeah, I just don't have the experience, the requisite experience there. Yeah, Firebase tools are just outrageously complex. I did try to do some stuff with Firebase on my website, and it worked out okay-ish, but yeah, they're just exceedingly complex. Sorry. Okay. All right. Yep, that's it. So thanks everybody for coming. It was fun, and we will see you. I don't know if I'm gonna be around for the. I think it's New Year's Eve is the day of the next office hours after Christmas. I'm not sure if I'll do this on that day or not. So we'll see. But yeah, one thing for those of you who are still sticking around, that's kind of fun is. Let's see, we actually don't have the website up yet, but if you go ahead and look for the Remix podcast, we actually do have a Remix podcast, and it looks like it's not, nope, it's not coming, at least in DuckDuckGo. Let's see what Google has to say about this query. No, probably not. Here, this one probably is. Nope. Not that one either. About pregnancy, what? Okay, yeah. So we've got a little bit of SEO to do, but like I said, we haven't published our podcast yet. But I can give you the feed. It's right here is the RSS feed for the Remix podcast, and we do have our introductory episode. I'm going to announce this on Monday, probably. Officially, but feel free to tweet about it. I don't care if people know and start getting excited about it. It'll be like a 30-minute podcast every week, and it's going to be great. So look forward to that. Okay, let me just see the last couple things. Oh, right. So really quick. Yep, Girish is talking about that. You need to make sure that when you do a logout, you're not doing like a link to a logout route that does a logout in the loader, but that you're doing a form that is a button to log out, because this protects you from cross-site request forgery stuff. So yes, just what Girish is talking about. Make sure any mutations should only happen in post requests to avoid cross-site request forgery. Okay, yep, there you go. Testingjavascript.com. That's good. Also, let's see. Blog, test. All of my test articles probably be helpful for you as well. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much, friends, and hope you all have a lovely day.